Hey, fellow mathers, before we get into this episode, we want to share with you how you can get access to free content, professional learning that will keep your students engaged and doing the math that matters. Get ready to go to this link, mathisfigureoutable.com/challenge.
That's right. Registration is open for the free Math is Figureoutable Challenge that's starting May 15th and runs to the 17th at 7 p.m. Central. We're going to have 3 nights jam-packed with learning and routines that you can take straight to your classroom.
In these challenges, we have a great time. We do some math, talk about classroom experiences, give away super cool bonuses and prizes. You won't just walk away with routines that are naturally engaging and encourage your students to think mathematically. You'll also have a chance to win over $6,000 worth in prizes, including a few virtual PD sessions for your school. I'll be joined by my wonderful co-host Kim and special guest Jenna Labe.
You can register at mathisfigureoutable.com/challenge for a fantastic learning experience. That's mathisfigureoutable.com/challenge. Now on to the show.
Hey, fellow mathers, welcome to the podcast where math is figureoutable. I'm Pam, a former mimicker turned mather.
And I'm Kim, a reasoner who now knows how to share her thinking with others. At Math is Figureoutable, we are on a mission to improve math teaching.
We know that algorithms are amazing historic achievements, but they are not good teaching tools because mimicking step-by-step procedures can actually trap students into using less sophisticated reasoning than the problems are intended to develop.
In this podcast, we help you teach mathing, building relationships with your students, and grappling with mathematical relationships.
We invite you to join us to make math more figure-outable. Oh, for heavens.
And laugh along with us as we try to figure things out.
Woo! We're going to get that opening down one of these days. We are. All right, Kim, what are we doing today?
Okay, so this episode is pretty dear to me because of the strong feeling that I have about how important it is to know your students in order to teach them well and to reach them where they are. So this episode, we're going to chat about building a community. But building a community isn't always a top priority in all classrooms, right? So let's chat today about how and why you should build community in your classroom.
Yeah, one of the things that you like to say is it's all about know your content, know your kids. And I actually did a webinar not too long ago with David Woodward in Forefront. And one of the things that we talked about, it was really kind of fun planning with him. He's fantastic. He and I could go on and on, kind of like you and me, though I don't know if anybody could replace you, Kim. But anyway.
Do you laugh as much?
No, but we do, but we do laugh. We do laugh.
Right,
it was really fun because as we were planning the webinar, he said that he'd really been messing around with this idea. It was for leaders. And he said, I've really been messing around with this idea that I think working with teachers, that it's really important that teachers know the content. They really need to understand the mathematical content. And we talked about that for a minute. He goes, but I also think it's really important that they listen to their students. Yeah, I started chuckling, and I was like, my co-host on the podcast, Kim, will say it's really important to know your content, know your kids. And we both kind of like laughed. I was like, yeah, because we'd spent 3 or 4 minutes where he was kind of saying, this is really what I've been thinking about lately. And I was like, yeah, we've been thinking about that too.
Yeah,
so that was really fun. Kim, we were at NCSM together, and we were in a session which shall not be named.
Yes.
And there was, it wasn't a bad session, right? It's pretty good. I think we were learning some stuff. But there was one thing that happened that we both kind of looked at each other, and I don't think you raised your eyebrow, but I kind of recognized that you wanted to.
Sure.
Sort of this look, and it again, it's not like horrible, but it was a move. The presenter had sent us off to talk to each other. And so we were talking in small groups or partners or whatever. And then I heard, come back to me. Come back to me. Come back to me.
Louder.
Louder. And we kind of looked at each other and I don't know, maybe smirked a little bit. It was like, I think one of us.
It was abrupt. It was
abrupt. It was kind of loud. It was kind of like stop on a dime. Yeah. It was like, hey, I really want you to talk in math class. Shut up. Now he didn't say shut up.
No.
It sort of sent that message, a little bit of like, okay, everybody talking math class, stop. And I think I looked at you and I said, what do you wish you would have said? Or something like that. And I think you said, come back together.
Maybe.
Like make it. And I thought that was such an interesting moment where there was this one message, come back to me. And
Mhm.
there's this other message, come back together.
Yeah.
And I think those are different. There's a different feeling tone there a little bit.
Yeah, hey, that reminds me, you know, we I think listeners probably know that we film problem strings in classrooms and
Mm-hmm.
then share those with members of Journey, your implementation support group. And
Mm-hmm.
so we have been aware, both of us, of watching the film later, which is super exciting, but watching it later and then realizing that on occasion, a thing that we want to get better at is we have said, tell me what you're thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And what we both identify as soon as we hear it is that we prefer that it to be tell us what you're thinking, tell
Mm-hmm.
the class, tell us more instead of tell me more. And so we're, um,
Oh my
it,
gosh, Kim, you are totally reminding me. Do you remember when we were, God, where were we? We were somewhere and Cara M, master problem string
oh, so good.
facilitator,
Yeah. Yeah.
was facilitating a problem string. And I think you were in the room. I know I was there. Anyway, and this gentleman said something, and it wasn't all that long or whatever. It was just kind of a short, brief, whatever. And I remember Cara leaned in, and she said, "Ooh, that seems really interesting. Convince us."
Hmm.
And in that moment, I was like, "Oh, that is
Yeah.
such a good move."
Uh-huh.
Because it was like this germ of an idea, and then she leaned in with that interested look, like, "I'm super curious about what you're thinking about." And then what she didn't say was, "Convince me." She
Right.
said, "Convince us." And I tell you, everyone in the room, like, sat up a little taller and leaned in and was like, "Yeah, like, that seems interesting. How would we
Yeah.
convince, like, I believe what he's talking about. How would we convince us as a community?" I think it's such an interesting. It was a fantastic moment for me. Cara, you're a fantastic, amazing problem string facilitator, among other things.
Yeah.
This is reminding me, Kim, of something early on when you and I were working together. We were diving into the work of Kathy Fosno and her Young Mathematicians at Work. And
Yeah.
she writes about how the teacher's job, the teacher's role is, I don't know what the right word, I don't want to say precarious. That's not the right word. Is uh,
Carefully.
maybe purposefully
Hmm.
to walk between being part of the community and planning for the community.
Hmm.
Let me say that again. Like, there's sort of two roles that we want the teacher to be really clear that part of what they are to do is to plan for the community. They are the teacher, they are the adult in the room, they are the more knowledgeable other, to quote Vygotsky, but we also want to be part of the community. But there's this line, and I love the way that and I'm kind of paraphrasing. So, Kathy, I hope you don't mind how I'm paraphrasing. But there's this line that you walk because you're not ever only planning for the community or only being part of the community, but you sort of tread in both worlds,
Yeah.
and that it's a careful, balanced walk. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And if I can add on to that, that you might be planning for where the mathematics is going,
Mm-hmm.
but you're a part of the community because you're also interested and you're also learning about where the student that's talking is right there and learning about what they're doing, and you can't know that for sure until you're listening, and so you're setting the tone for the rest of the class that we're listening here, and I'm interested and I'm curious. Yeah, it's a delicate walk for sure.
And that you are interesting and worth listening to, and that we can co-create things together,
Yeah.
and that we all
Yeah.
benefit from the conversation, that we all get better as we all gain clarity together. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think it's
Yeah.
interesting. If I may, I've spent some time over the years, and then again recently, in some classrooms, and I tend to hear a specific thing in high school classrooms that I don't hear as often in other classrooms.
Uh-huh.
And Kim, I'm just gonna quote a few things that I heard lately, and I'm gonna see if you can pick out what I'm talking about. So, a few things that I heard over and over again, recently and in the past. Hey, so my coordinate over here is positive, and my coordinate over here is negative. So I'm gonna da 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 da. There's one example.
Mhm.
Or, hey, when I take my equation, I'm getting my x on the other side. And so see how I've got my variable here, but see how my variable here is connected to this constant. And so
Mhm.
if I need to get my variable on the other, that's another
Mhm.
example. And then
Mhm.
maybe one more. So when my number's negative, then I'm going to add the opposite. But when my number's positive, then we can, anyway, I don't know. Did you notice any
Yeah. Yeah,
patterns?
I'm instantly disengaged because it's all about you. It's your stuff, and I'm watching you or listening to you do your stuff. Yeah.
It's an interesting, you know, I've been in classrooms where excellent teaching is happening,
Yeah.
like where it's actually, and maybe none of the ones I just mentioned were excellent teaching. You might be like, that was excellent teaching, but where I'm really in a room where teachers are doing a decent job of getting kids engaged and active, but every time, not every time, that's too extreme, but often the teacher, when they're discussing what they're doing, or they're discussing, the math, it's my this and my that and my equation and my
Is that pretty
variable.
common? That's pretty common in high school?
I don't, every classroom I've been in the last 10 years, I think I can't say every,
Yeah,
many,
lots.
many. And again, I hear it more often in high school. I hear it, it's almost a continuum. I don't hear it very often in the younger grades, and I hear it
Okay.
sort of more as the grades get older, but I
Uh-huh.
see it often in high school classrooms
Yeah.
where for some reason, even, teachers that we're learning together and I'm really enjoying what's happening, but there's this. So here's what I'm not saying. I'm not saying that it is a death knell, that it is, oh my gosh, you're the worst teacher ever if you're doing that.
No.
Maybe I did that. I don't remember what I did that when I was first teaching. But I definitely look out for it now. I definitely look
Sure.
out now for it's not all about me. It's not about my equation and my variable, my coordinate axis and my 23, or, like whatever. It's my ratio table, my array up here and my array over there.
Mhm.
That's it's just a little off-putting. It's just a little less. In fact, Kim, I'm reminded, I just read a Substack by Dan Meyer. I don't remember what it was called. A better person would remember what that was called, where he talked about, why did you go into math teaching? And he kind of talked about two per, two reasons why you might have gone into math teaching. One, maybe you really liked the math, and one, maybe you really liked kids, and that it kind of didn't matter the where you came from, but that it's sort of good to maybe acknowledge that, and that we kind of want to acknowledge that there might be some things that come along with both of those. And as he was talking about that, I wonder if I guess one of the cautions he gave to teachers who went into it because they like the math was that we can sort of be all consumed about the math and
Mhm.
not create this community, that it's all
Mhm.
about me and my math, and it's not
Mhm.
like, oh, here we're all sort of learning together, co-creating things together.
Yeah, it feels like that could be very, you talked about Fosno saying you walk the line.
Mm-hmm.
That feels like you could sway a little too heavily about planning for the community and
Mm,
saying, I'm going
mm.
to, whether you demonstrate or you provide experiences where they do good math or whatever, but if it's you're too far planning and not being a part of the community, and it's
That's
interesting
nicely
because
said.
I hear
Yeah.
you say my, and me. Like, I wonder, we have a lot of really disengaged high school students. A
Yep.
lot, a
Yep.
lot. And I wonder, even just that small tweak of like, help us, Cara's brilliant, like
Convince
help us,
us.
convince
Yeah.
us.
Mm-hmm.
It's our work. It's our, I wonder if high school teachers knew that had an impact. Just that small tweak could maybe make a big difference.
Yeah, nice. While you mentioned swaying a little too far to the planning for the community, Dan Meyer also mentioned that if you're on kind of that other, like maybe you went into math teaching because you really liked kids,
Yeah,
you might sway a little too far towards being part of the community. And he
sure.
suggested we might want to look out for, oh, that looked a little hard for you. Maybe I'll try to make it
Hmm.
easier with this trick. Or,
Hmm.
oh, that you're
Hmm.
struggling over there. Maybe we just won't do that part because,
Hmm.
like, oh, everybody's happier now. So it really is this balance of walking the line between planning for the community and being a part of the community. I like
Yeah.
how you brought that back in. Nice.
Yeah. I mean, finding that sweet spot is, as you often say, it's not trivial, right? It's finding the balance
Yeah.
can meet the needs of students in a way that being too far one or the other way is not. So, why is community important? Having a solid mathematical community in your classroom. Well, it invites empathy. And
Mm-hmm.
it helps with problem solving, helps with working together. If students are learning from each other, then you're going to get more from your students in a strong community.
Nice, nice. I mean,
Yeah.
engagement is just going up naturally.
Yeah. Hey, have you ever been in a classroom? So I know that I have for sure. And
Hmm.
maybe it's, living more in the elementary world, but I have been in classrooms where you just walk in and you feel it. You're like, this is a community.
Oh my,
There's
yeah,
evidence in the room, the way the teacher's speaking to the students, the way the students are speaking to the teacher. Have you ever been in an older grade um classroom where that
yeah.
feels?
Yeah, you know what? We've been filming in classrooms lately, and
Uh-huh.
I was in a high school classroom not too long ago where I was a little nervous. I'm on film, the cameras are
Sure.
showing up, the whole
Sure.
thing. I had only met this teacher briefly, so I didn't really know him very well. And uh, right early, I'm not even expecting kids to be in the room yet. We're super early setting things up, and a kid kind of came in. He was super agitated, kind of upset. My
Mm.
guard went up a little bit because I've seen adults handle kids when they're kind of agitated or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah, yeah.
And I want to walk that line of being part of the community and kind of like I don't know, like be there for the kid,
Sure.
like honestly sort of walk hand in hand with them, kind of, like, anyway. So my guard went up a little bit, and then I worried it wasn't going to go well, and I just watched this teacher just like, yeah, like just invite the kid in and listen to him, look him in the eye, was super patient, kind of laughed a little bit at the appropriate times. The kid kind of took a breath, was, you could just feel the kid kind of relax a little bit. And I thought, oh, this is gonna be a great day.
Yeah.
Like just this little interaction that I watched with this teacher and this one kid, and I was like, oh, I am gonna have a fantastic day, because the kids are gonna walk in this room knowing that their teacher is on their side, that their teacher believes they're humans, and that they're all in this for the benefit of the students. Like there's just, and sure enough, it was a fantastic day. Kids came in ready to learn. Yeah, that was a moment I remember. Do
That's
you,
awesome.
do you have a moment when you?
I can tell you about a different moment.
Oh no,
um, yeah, I have kids who are getting older, and
most kids are. Sorry, sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you there.
that was perfect. Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, true that. My kids are typical aging children. Um, and they've been in some unique experiences where I've gotten to see other adults interact with them, through different things that they're in. But I did have a moment where I got to see one of my students, one of my kids, in a school environment. And the teacher, didn't really ask a lot of questions. And it was evident that they really weren't all that interested in hearing what the kids thought. It was very sage on the stage type situation. But one time I overheard, actually I say it was more than one time, but often I heard, when I start talking, you stop talking. And
What?
I was like, wait, what? When I start talking, you stop talking. What I'm saying is important. And
Oh,
in that moment, I went, okay, what they're saying is important too. I mean, I get it. Like sometimes they're probably
when
talking about
I start
whatever.
talking, you stop
You stop
talking.
talking. Uh-huh.
Okay,
And
okay,
it
okay.
was when kids were talking about something mathy. And I was like, wow, what message is that sending, that like you're more important and what you have to say is more important. And listen, I get it. Like we have a lot to do as teachers.
Sure.
That's not doing a lot of good
What
from
I'm
wanting to kids to be in
saying,
your class and wanting to
yeah,
learn from you and wanting, like, we can get so much from our students when we've built community with them. They trust you, you trust them, you can hold them accountable. They know they're going to be held accountable. Yeah, it was just one of those moments where I was like, okay, I don't
I
see eye
mean,
to eye on a lot of things.
when you say the words, what I am saying is important,
Uh-huh.
surely that has to imply that what you are saying is less important.
Yeah.
Which we might have teachers out there going, yeah, it is. What the kids are saying is less important. It goes back to, what does it mean to learn? And
Mhm.
if we are having kids learn to gain clarity as they find words to put to their ideas, then what they're saying is important. It's funny, Kim, when you and I present, often we'll say, finish the sentence you're on.
Mm-hmm.
and then talk about how we're not trying to cut people off because we feel like it's important for them to actually talk. Yeah, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Woo.
It's interesting for me to hear you tell stories about high school because I feel like elementary teachers might spend more time on building community than upper
Mm,
grades. Now, you obviously had this one experience where there was some good work. So I don't want to totally blanket overgeneralize. I'm
mhm.
sure there's some fantastic high school teachers who and middle school teachers who are also building fantastic community. But I also wonder if that's a bit of kind of where kids start to disengage. And I don't mean that it's just that elementary teachers say friends, like, hey, friends, we're part of a community. But I do think that they work really hard to say, this is our classroom. We all have roles. We all have responsibilities here. We all own this. I don't know.
And you're kind of wondering if that's not as true for
Yeah.
middle school and high
Yeah.
school.
I don't know.
You know, I'll say this in defense of maybe some decisions that middle and high school teachers make, and then maybe we can examine it. But like if we go back to Fosno's idea that there's sort of these two roles,
Mm-hmm.
we're trying to walk the line. I wonder sometimes if teachers of older students think about that it's kind of two sides, and
Mm,
that I'm supposed to that they might hear it as, yeah, you want me to be like all touchy feely and make kids guess. You know, in fact, I was talking to a teacher not too long ago. She goes, "Oh yeah, I went through that movement, that discovery movement, where I was supposed to have kids guess all the stuff. Yeah, that worked really great. I would, I'd give them, I'd say to them, okay, go figure out the Pythagorean theorem. Go ahead." And they, and
yeah.
it didn't work. And I was like, "That's what that's the message you." So I get it. I think there is part of, if you've never been in a really good inquiry kind of situation where you actually learned with a guide who facilitated your learning by giving you just the right question at just the right time and the edge of your zone of proximal development so that you could be like, oh my gosh, it's this, and whoa, and a connect. And if you've never had that experience, then I get how you might hear everything we've just said about being part of the community as like, I'm supposed to just like make them guess and fumble around in the dark and
Mm-hmm.
reinvent. And that's kind of like, it's actually mean. I should be on that side, the planning side, where I should clearly delineate all the things. I should give them to them. And what we're suggesting is, no, it really is walking the line. It
Yeah.
isn't that you are one side or the other too far. It's not it. Please hear us say it is never intended that we would never intend that you're going to leave kids fumbling around on their own, trying to reinvent stuff that we could clearly just, that it would work for us to clearly hand to them. We're really on the side of building kids agency and building kids reasoning power, and that is walking the line. That is knowing content so that you understand where we're
Mm-hmm.
going in the mathematics, but it's diving in and knowing the kids. It's being
Yeah.
willing to be a human being with those kids, because human beings learn better together.
Yeah,
We,
and the more you know your kids, the more you're going to get from them, right? And that's what we want, right? We want kids to know more content and develop in lots of fantastic ways in the year that you have them. And so, if there's something that you can do to help, and listen, I mean, I feel like this is me dogging on middle and high school teachers. It's not that.
eh,
I know
not,
plenty of elementary teachers that could use some ideas as well about building community. So what do you think? What if somebody doesn't have or is identifying like I don't think I have a solid community in my classroom. What are
or
some
I'd like
things
to
I can
build
do
a
to
better
support?
one. Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe I'd like to build a better community. Yeah. So here's a couple places to start. I got really lucky. My second year of teaching, I was involved in a thing. I don't even know what we called it. Small group of us at the high school went to the training, and one of the things they did I think was super helpful. So I'll just throw this out as an idea to start wrapping your head around building a community in your classroom. They in this professional development scenario, they said take out a piece of paper and just write down your third period class. Just write down all their names. And I was like, third period, whatever. And they're like, just or pick one. Like pick. Now, obviously, they're talking to teachers that have a third period. So if you're a self-contained classroom, just write down all your students. Just like literally write them all down. Now, maybe if you're self-contained, so you only have, I don't know, 26 kids to write down, maybe write down their names and what you know about where they are right now in the thing you're teaching. Like
Yep.
what do you know about what you're teaching? But if you're like a middle school, high school teacher, third period, just write all their names down. So we just wrote them all down. And then they're like, did you get them all? And I was like, I don't think I have them all. Like, I'm not sure how many I have in third period. I think it was early enough in the year that I didn't quite know how many I had in each class. Usually I'd get there by the end of the year. But anyway, I was pretty clear that I was missing a few. And it was super interesting. Gave us a few minutes to write those down. And then they said, those kids that aren't there, get to know those kids. Like did it. And we, sure enough, when we compared all of us in that small committee, when we compared, and we were, I'll just be, we were decent teachers. It's
Yeah.
not like this is an anomaly. All of us had some hidden kids in our classroom that just hid well. They were kids who didn't cause a ruckus. They didn't, make their presence real known, but they also weren't doing a lot of learning. Like they were just kind of hidden. And that was a place for me to start. A place for me to start was to acknowledge I have some kids that kind of hide well. They've gotten good at it. And I'm going to acknowledge them. I'm going to notice them. I'm going to say hello. I'm just going to make it a point to make sure those kids know that I see them. That was a place that I started, really helped my teaching, helped me kind of focus on the kids as human beings. So I think that could be a place to start.
That's so powerful. That's super powerful, because I know that you have so many kids in high school. Like there's so many, right? And you're not going to know all the details of them like you would as an elementary school teacher. I mean, elementary kids are going to say all the things about their family and their dog and their whatever. But knowing their name and knowing you're in my third period class could be a goal. By the end of the year, know who they all are.
How about by the end of the 6 weeks? I mean, maybe don't just know their names, but say their names. And that could be a way for you to learn all the kids' names. I think names are super, super important. I'll just say briefly, maybe we'll talk about this more one day, but every time I would start class, at the beginning of the year, very first class, I would try to, I would video the kids as they walked in. And then I would say, sit alphabetically. And then I would just sit in the back of the room with a video camera and watch them try to figure out how to sit alphabetically. And then as soon as they would, I'm telling you now, so I'll just tell you, as soon as they would sit down, then I would walk up to the first kid and I would go, Aaron, Andrew, I can't even think of another A name right now, but Alex. And they would look at me and they would go, no, like my last name's Anderson. And I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. I meant sit alphabetically by first name.
Yeah.
And they would look at me like, seriously? And I was like, yeah. And so then they would get up and they would, well, y'all, what was brilliant was I now have these kids on camera sitting alphabetically by their last names. And then I have them on camera sitting alphabetically by their first names. And then I would go home and I would memorize that video. And
you do that to this day. You do that with your college classes.
Well, with my college classes, it's a little different because they come with pictures. And so I memorize the pictures ahead of time as best I can. And when they walk in the door that first day of class, I go, hey, Mark, I'm super glad you're here today. And they look at me like, are you a stalker? Like what? Yeah. And every once in a while, they go by their middle name. And so, darn it, I've got Catherine and it's really Louise and whatever. But and they look at me and I say to them, every move I make in this class, I'm hoping you will either ask me, is that something you think we should do? As because these are all teachers to be in my university classes. But I will try to be like purposeful about everything I do. And so, I memorize names. I think names are super important, and then call people by their name.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's super powerful.
How about you, Kim? What's something? Go ahead.
Well, I'll just tell you that in my son's math class this year, he came home from school the first day, and I asked if they had done anything. And he said, no, this week he's learning our names. And so he visited with us in small groups while we were working on something, and just went around and around and around until he got everybody's name right. And I was like, yeah, it's gonna be a good year. It's gonna be a good year.
That's nice.
So if you want to go, next level, if you really want to build a community, I think it's as simple as asking questions and then listen, like really listen. Ask meaningful questions about them, about what they think about what's happening in the math class, and then just listen, right?
And about the math, right? Like what's happening in class, but also math.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And listen.
And actually listen. That would be excellent. Yeah. And maybe don't say my and mine when really not yours.
That could be help.
No.
Speaking of community, we have a super fun Facebook community. Love it or hate it.
Math is Figureoutable teacher Facebook group. Yep.
Yeah. And Natalie recently said, it's been a little while, but everyone's been super helpful with their comments. I love this safe space to ask questions. That made me so happy.
Oh, Natalie, nice.
Love the teacher Facebook group. You can join us there. It's, because of the members in that group, They're talking solid content questions and actually giving each other really helpful suggestions. And so there's like-minded people there. You should join us.
And we kind of monitor the group and make sure that if, like,
oh yeah.
Like we're on a we're on a figure outable mission. So if somebody suggests something that's more rote memorizable, we gently push back and yeah, super suggestions. So if you want a place where you can get solid recommendations, join the Math is Figure Outable Teacher Facebook group. And y'all, thank you for tuning in and teaching more and more real math. To find out more about the Math is Figure Outable movement, visit mathisfigureoutable.com. Let's keep spreading the word that math is figure outable. Thank you for listening and making math more figure outable.
To learn even more, make sure you register for our free challenge at mathisfigureoutable.com/challenge. You are not going to want to miss the evenings of May 15th through 17th, starting at 7 p.m. Central.
Math teaching, go register now. That's mathisfigureoutable.com/challenge. Join us to make math more and more figure outable. And if you can't join live, register and we'll send you access to the recordings. We'll see you there.